Hi, my name is Ronnie from Equine Voices, and welcome to this interview with a lovely lady called Gail Simmons. Now, I'm really excited to chat to Gail because when I first asked her to, if she'd like to come on for a chat on my podcast, she graciously said yes, which was wonderful. But unusually for me, what I did was we had a little chat beforehand. Gail wanted to just to see how it worked and have a little chat, which we did, and that was about an hour long. And then a little while ago, I had the urge to call her, so I called her, and we had another little chat. And it was a good job that we did because the time difference had changed where she is. So that was my intuition kicking in. I didn't know why I was calling her, but obviously I needed to. Anyway, I'm going to introduce Gail, and she can explain who she is and what she does. Now, she's an animal communicator, so I'm really intrigued to see how it works for her. Gail is my second animal communicator that I've had the pleasure of chatting to. So without further ado, I shall bring Gail in.
Hi, Ronnie.
Hi, Gail, and welcome to Equine Voices podcast.
Oh.
Now, would you like to introduce yourself in your own words and just give a little brief introduction on what you do and who you are?
I'm in Canada, in central Ontario, or mostly eastern Ontario right now. And I've done animal communication for many, many years. Any one of you can do it. I'm just an ordinary person. I taught high school for 31 years. I'm a mother, a grandmother, an aunt, a partner, and I live an ordinary life in the country here. And I've been recently out doing maple syrup boiling and putting beautiful maple syrup into bottles. I've had horses for over 50 years, and I do not know what I would do without horses in my life. And I've always been able to talk to them, but I didn't know that I was talking to them in a way that nobody else seemed to be talking to them. And like many animal communicators, you'll hear them say, well, I kept it quiet. And I did until I stopped teaching, until I retired, because I was afraid that maybe the parents of the kids might think I was a bit weird. And my husband calls me a witch, not to insult me, but just because I do stuff that is kind of witch-like to some people. But any one of us can do it. It's just a channel of energy that comes through. And if you just listen and stop the logical chit chat of your daily life, then the messages come through. So I could go on and on and on about my life, but I think we should probably get into animals and what they have to say.
Okay. So I'll just explain to people that are listening or watching that you're a regular viewer on the podcast that I do, and it's lovely because you always make a comment and you always say hello. So it's really nice to put a face to the name. And yeah, so I knew you was an animal communicator because you'd mentioned that a few times in your comments. So it is lovely, and it is nice to see how other people work and how it is for you. So would you like to just give an example of what happens when you connect to an animal? Do they come to you, or is it a client that comes to you, or are you sort of open most of the time?
You can't be open most of the time because you'd never stop the chatter. They're all talking, and trees are talking, and rocks are talking. Everything has energy. I'll try to explain how I do it. So what I've said to people is that if you can imagine listening to your favorite radio show, and so you've got your radio host on there, and you turn the switch on so you can hear that person. And the energy comes through their voice. All our voices are as energy, and it kind of comes through. We don't really know what it comes through when you think of it. Like, it comes through the air. Look at us. You're in London. I'm in Canada. And I don't know how many people there are listening from every year. It's going into your eardrum, which vibrates energy, which goes into your brain, which is an energy source. And your cognitive abilities make sense of these words that are coming out of my mouth. So if you're listening to your radio and you've got it on, if you turn it off, does that person stop talking? No, the person's in the studio somewhere yakking away and all the other people are listening, but you have turned them off. So you've cut off the opening where the energy came through. So when I go into my space, I'll tell you how I do it. A lot of communicators can just do it. I need to go into a quiet space, just get rid of all of the daily chatter, breathe, get into a dark, lovely space. And then I go up in my mind. It's an imagery sort of thing. And I go up in my mind to what I call the universal energy source, which is all light. It's so beautiful. And it's unlike any light on earth. And then I funnel it down through the chakra on the top of my head and down and then out through my heart to the animal. And I do it remotely using photographs. So I need two. One where I can see the animal's eyes, and the other one a side shot with no, if it's a horse, no tack, no blankets, nothing. And I do that for a while, and then sometimes I send the energy down my whole body, down my knees, my legs, my feet, down through the floor into the earth, into all of the roots that are there. And I gather that energy back up through my body and I push it out to the animal. And when I know the channel is open, I have this funny little feeling right here, as if your glasses are too tight or too heavy, or if you've ever worn those masks you wear under the water and it just sort of really hurts you. And when that starts buzzing, I know I'm there. Why? I don't know. I have no idea why. It just does that. And so the human, the person, has sent me the photographs and 3 to 5 questions. And that is the intent. You have to go in with intention. A question. And so I will breathe and I'll look in the animal's eyes, and then I will send the question across through the energy waves to the animal. And they, if they're willing to talk, and all but one was really willing to talk. And some animals are so anxious to tell their humans what they want to tell them that they sort of go, no, you don't need to go into all that nonsense. I'm right here. I'm right here. Just listen to me. And I have to shut my brain and, just, okay, I'm listening, and wham, away they go. And sometimes they've got their own agenda and they don't care about my questions, although I do get them answered because it might be a medical problem a human doesn't understand or something like that. And so I'm in that space, and it's just a beautiful space, and there is no time. So I might be in some animals I talk to for almost 3 hours. That's rare, but almost 3 hours. So if it's an hour and a half or 2 hours, I think maybe 10 minutes have passed. And when I come out of it, it's like if you've gone into a really, really good movie and you go in the daylight and the movie has taken you away, and you come out in the darkness and you're on the sidewalk and you kind of go, whoa, how did I get back here? I was there. So that's what it feels like when you're in the space. My favorite animals to talk to are ones who've passed. So any of you out there who have euthanized your animal, I really want you to know that every single one of them I've talked to has said, thank you so much for letting me out of my earth body. So if their body is sore or it's broken down or they've just got so many problems, they don't want to be in it anymore. And all the body is a chemical made up of chemicals and water. And they will, the energy source, I'll just go here a bit, is right to me in here. And everybody's different, but this is where you feel love, you feel hate, heaven forbid, you feel anxiety, you panic, or you're just like this. It's all in there. And that to me is the energy source that leaves the body and goes back to the universal energy place to be reconfigured. It might all sound nuts, but the animals have said that they are out of their earth body before it stops reacting to the chemicals that have been injected into it. And they're right here with you. And they will stay with you until they are sure that you are ready to let them go. And then they always say, you will know when I've left. And I talked to a little dog named Emma a few years ago, and her person loved her very much. Oh no, it was Scouty. Oh, it doesn't matter. Anyway, loved her very much. And he was devastated, as we all are when we lose our animals. And she said, I did the communication maybe in March or April. And she said, I will be with you until July, and you will know when I've left. And he did. He told me. So the animals are happy after they've left their earth bodies. They do not want you to feel guilty at all. And they say, thank you. And I don't know really how I got on that one. I just think it's important that people know, because that's what tugs at your heartstrings so much when you have to make that decision. So
absolutely, you must have been reading my mind, because I just literally wrote that question down,
did
Gail.
you?
And
Yeah.
I thought we must remember, because I thought we'll talk about that later, because I know it's a hard one. And even though we know that, it doesn't mean that you don't mourn the loss of the physical. So
No.
even though you know the animal is not, it's their clothing that's gone, their essence is still there, their soul, whatever you want to call it, you still mourn the physical, because we are physical beings on this planet, and we interact physically. So you can still have that feeling, but knowing that you're just mourning the loss of that part of it, not the entire energy, the animal that you loved. And the same goes for humans. When humans leave their body, they often say, now I'm talking from understanding, because I haven't gone yet as far as I know, but you see what's going on, and you have already left before that part happens. And it's really funny. I did an interview with a lady called Mona Illebrun. She's from Canada, and she, after we finished the podcast, I'm not going to go into details because we're going to talk about this, but she had a really bad accident, and she just described everything that was happening. But she'd actually died, and the paramedics had pronounced her dead, and was taking her to the hospital. And she decided that she wasn't going anywhere. She's got work to do. She sat up on the trolley, and the paramedics nearly had a heart attack. But there's a whole another story to that. And so that has a similar thing to the human, to everybody.
It's interesting when people have those near-death experiences. Often that's when they enter into an understanding of the energy world. Mm-hmm. That's often when the door opens for them. I've just read that and heard that from other communicators. Yeah. And I think that's really interesting. And we've all heard about people saying, I see the light. Mm-hmm. I didn't want to come back. Well, to me, that's the universal energy source. The light is very different there, and it's kind of neat.
Yeah. It was very funny how she told the story. Okay, so I know you have some funny stories that you don't mind sharing.
Yeah.
About some of the animals that you communicated. So if you'd like to just go ahead and just share a few experiences, shall we say?
Okay, there was little Ruby. She's just a little dog like that with a huge personality. And her person wanted to know if Ruby liked her horse, Monty. And Ruby, she swore. I won't swear here. You can fill in the blanks, but she was horrible. She had this horrible swearing, really, really powerful presence. And I said, do you like Monty, Ruby? Your person wants to know. She says, no, I hate him. I want to kick him in the shins. Only she put a few swear words in there as well. And I said, you don't really, do you? Yes, I do. That's what she said. But what was also interesting about Ruby is she said that she was really ticked off that she was in a small dog body. She was so angry over that. And I asked her, she was one that yacked on, and I just asked her questions. And I said, why are you in a small dog body? And she said, well, I'm supposed to learn not to be so bossy. And I said, well, you're not doing very well at it, are you? And she had been, I don't remember if it was a human, but I think it was a man, a presence that was really, really bold and forceful. And she needed her essence, her spirit needed to be taught a bit of humility and a bit of gentility. She's probably, I said, if you keep that, I remember this now, if you keep that up, you're going to come back as an ant. the next time you be this little tiny thing. But a really cool thing that happened with her is she took me, she said, I was a boy in a previous life. We have previous lives, everybody, in case you don't know. She was a boy in a previous life, and she worked in an opera house in Italy. And she took me to Italy, walking a street, and it had cobblestones, but not like the ones we have. It was all uneven, sort of. I guess that's irrelevant. But anyway, I thought it was interesting at the time. And I could smell smells that I wasn't used to smelling. And she, or he, the boy, took me into the opera house, and he would see people. And he came from a very poor family, so he could never have afforded to go to the opera, but he knew all the operas, or Ruby, she did too. And she asked me to ask her person to play her, to play a certain opera. I can't remember the name. I had never heard of it. And I said, okay, I'll try to do that. And I looked it up on the internet after. Sure enough, there it was. There it was. And on that note, I was just doing a little research here on things just to refresh my memory. I also talked to a cat named Bella. And in the whole communication, she insisted that her person get a book called The Mythology of Cats. Have you ever? And I thought, okay. So I wrote it down and sent it off to her person. In the meantime, I looked up on the internet to see if that book existed. Yes, it's called The Mythology of Cats, Feline Legend and Lore. I can't make it up. I've never heard of a book called that. And so I don't know if her person got that or not. But those are just a couple of the funny ones. But the ones that really, really hit home and tell me, yeah, you've reached it. You see, there's no manual for this, right? You do it, and you have to trust the energies, because if your logical self gets in the way, you're not giving the human the pure energy from the animal. So because I've had animals for so long, especially horses, if I get something that says, oh, the horse is colicked, I go, yeah, right. That's what I would have told them. The horse is colicked. But I've learned I have to write it down. So there was a horse. Do you want this story, Ronnie? Is this okay? Yeah. There was a horse who had gone to this person's stable quite a ways away on trial. The horse would not drink. That's all. The human was in a panic. Would I talk to this horse? Sure, I would. Had a little chat with the horse. I said, why won't you drink? And he said, I won't drink. I can't eat because I have, his words, and they correct my English. I was an English teacher. So when I'm typing everything up, I'm correcting. And the animals will always say, no. You need to go back. That's not what I said. That's what you would say. And so I do it. I put it in quotation marks. Anyway, he said, I have a growth in the bottom of my swallow. I said, well, what is that? And he showed me, I see images as well. He showed me a blow up of a vein that you might see in high school or something, or in a science course. And in the bottom of that was a lump, so that when he put his head down to drink or eat, it caused pressure, was uncomfortable. 2 vets looked at him that afternoon. He had a growth in the bottom of his jugular vein. Have you ever? Never heard of it. So that sort of thing tells you, yeah, something's coming through that's real. And then over the years, because of the kindness of people and giving me feedback, I can be more comfortable going, yeah, that's exactly what I should write. And it's not my logical self speaking. The animals are incredible. Just incredible. I was talking to one animal, and I think it was a mare. Her human was chatting. During the conversation, her human was off on an island. Remember, I do this remotely. On an island, chatting with his dad, hanging over the fence. Just, should we put shoes on all 4 of this mare or not? You know, this sort of thing. Meantime, unbeknownst to me, they're talking about that. I'm asking the horse a question, and she says, no, I don't want any shoes. I said, pardon? I'm not asking for, no, tell them I don't want any shoes. Okay. I wrote it down. And when I sent it off to them, they wrote back and said, that's really interesting. We were leaning over the fence right when you were wondering if we should put all four shoes on. So there's that story. There's a wonderful story about a horse named Chance, whose person, we'll call him Brian. Brian's wife contacted me and asked me if I would do a communication for her husband for Christmas. And Chance had passed 15 years before. And she said, would you do this? And I said, usually I need permission from the person, but I'll try and see how it goes. And so Chance told me that I knew nothing about this animal or these people. I still don't really. And Chance told me that when Brian was a kid, he was kind of bullied. He was a bit shy. He was slight, and he was withdrawn. And the only time he was bursting with life and energy was when he rode Chance. And Chance showed me that two of them doing barrel racing and just tearing around and winning ribbons and, just having a wonderful time. And Chance told me that he lived for many, many, many years. I didn't know how old he was when he passed until I got a response from Brian's wife. And that it was through Chance that he turned the boy into a man. I thought, wow, I hope this is true. This could be a disappointing Christmas present if he was a dressage rider or something. So anyway, I sent it off. So back comes the response. Brian was in tears, and he and his wife, I learned after, have children. And he shared it with his children as well. And indeed, they were barrel racers. And he was the only one, Chance said this too, he was the only one who could ride this horse, and that he would take him to these shows. And Brian said, I felt like a knight when I rode him. And yes, he taught me how to move from being a shy boy to a confident man. And he died the year that he passed, the year that he and his wife were married. And so he lived 30 years. And it's just the most wonderful story. He also said that the horse is back on Earth again as a golden lab with a little boy in a wheelchair. And he said, for me to tell Brian, you will recognize me when you look at me in my eyes, and I will know you too. Isn't that cool?
Oh, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So
a lot of people may be listening thinking, how can that be? How can, or maybe they're not actually, the ones that listen to my podcast. So I explained that there's no such thing as time. I mean, we perceive time because that's what we do. But even now, time is changing. It's different. It's slightly different. The time is changing as we know it, and everybody will have their own point of view or their own belief. And to me, it doesn't really matter what you believe, as long as you are aware that nothing that we know and we see is actually the actual case. There are many versions, there are many explanations to things we hear and we see. And our minds can only comprehend and cope with so much. If we knew exactly how the universe worked, we just could not absorb it. We couldn't take that. And it would take so much time and effort that we wouldn't be experiencing this life that we're here to do. And so when you talk about animals that have passed, that are not in their physical, some people believe that when they've gone, they've gone. But you've just described some stories, some recollections from your past of how that isn't the case. And myself also, I've communicated with horses and animals and people that are not here. And I think if you just open to that and trust your heart and trust your feel, that you can sense that. If you're not afraid, it's nothing to be afraid of. And it's nothing that, as you said earlier, that nobody is excluded from. We're all open, we're all antennas. As you described about the radio station, that's how I describe it, that
Mhm.
you're fine-tuning. But I never say that I close off, but I don't think about closing off. It just automatically, to me, it's at the end of the signal, that's it, and I carry on doing what I'm doing. I don't consciously say I'm open and I'm closed. That's the way that, for me, that's just the way that I've done it. And tonight, driving home, I got a message, and I know, because I pull over, leave the message, then go. And sometimes it's only a few words. It's just a few words. But I usually feel that when that happens, the person that I pass the message on is already aware of what that means. So I don't have to go into a whole story behind the words. I just give the feel to it. And I say, if this makes sense, that's great. But if not, please let me know and I'll ask more questions. But sometimes it is a little, it's just a few words, but you know that something's happened that's relevant to that for them to understand it.
That's very true. And if we can just stop doubting ourselves. So you get this feeling and you go, no, that didn't really happen because I can't see it, because it's not tangible. It's not this cup that's here because I'm able to touch this cup. And sometimes the energy just comes in. So I'll tell the story of walking down a barn aisle that was right angled. So my horse had an abscess. I'd gone to the tack room to get all of the things that I needed to deal with it. My arms were full, and I was walking down one part of the aisle before I turned, and there was a mare who was a cantankerous mare. You would go near her stall and she'd turn her rear end and she'd be doing all this. Anyway, I hear a voice say, "Excuse me, could you please get me some water? I don't have any." My logical self said, I was alone in the barn. Okay, I've really lost it this time. I thought, no, that's not a thing. And so I carried on. As soon as I turned the corner, I hear in my mind, you don't hear it with your ears, you hear it in your mind. No, I'm serious. Could you please come back? I don't have any water. And I knew the person who ran the barn had just left maybe an hour earlier, and that all of the horses would have water, that she was immaculate. I thought, okay, I better listen to this. So you stopped the car. I put everything on the floor and I turned around and I went back to her stall and I thought, oh, okay, here we go. No way. She's politely standing in the back of her stall looking at me like a pussycat. And I looked at her and I thought, if I open this door, she's going to get at me. I open the door and she's, thank you. She's very polite. And I go in and I think, man, if I look in that bucket and there's no water in it, I think, I don't know what I'm going to do. Because it was just so strange. Go over, I look in the bucket, just a drop is all that's left. So I thought, all right. So she drank 2 full buckets of water. I know she'd had water, and I gave them to her and I shut the door and I was walking away and she said, thank you, in my head. And she said, I'm afraid. And I thought, whoa. In my head, I said, what are you afraid of? And she said, I don't think I'll be a good mother. And so I asked her, I said, I think you'll be a great mother. You're so aggressive. Nobody's going to touch your baby. And I asked her person the next day, I said, is that mare in foal? Mm-hmm. Yes, she is. So isn't that fascinating? So the back to what you were saying, the energy comes in. Try not to block it. Anybody can do this. We are all energy beings. Just stop blocking it. Don't think you're crazy. Let other people think you're crazy. They do a good enough job of it. And just be receptive to it. And sometimes more than one animal will talk. I was on Sable Island, or about to go on Sable Island, and I was doing, I did a presentation on the ship. And I was getting set up for that and getting some information. So I needed to chat with some of the horses on the island before I went on the island. And it's off of Nova Scotia, probably about 300 kilometers. And there are hundreds and hundreds of seals on the shore who just sort of lie in the sun and do their thing. And I was having a chat with one of the horses on the island, and the seals interrupted me. And I said, I can't talk to you just now. I've got this presentation. I need to chat with these horses. No, you need to hear what we have to say. Okay, so I put the horses aside, and what is it? It was really interesting. They said, would you please ask the humans on the ship, we hadn't been to shore yet, that when they come to shore, not to laugh at us? And I said, laugh at you? What do you mean? And they said, they all laugh at us because we're on the shore. And would you please tell them that we are as beautiful as galloping horses when we're in the water? I said, yes, I will. Thank you. And then I went back to chatting with the horses. Isn't that cool?
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
It was memorable. It was really, really lovely to have a chat with them. And then other animals will come in and chat from time to time, but primarily, I wish that would happen more often, but it doesn't. But when it does, I'm all ears.
I remember, God, it was years ago, and I was walking down a local town somewhere, and I think it was a sunny day, and there was this gentleman with his little dog, and animals, you just go up and stroke dogs, and it's the same with cats. Sometimes you'll go up and stroke a cat, but it's just to connect to them sometimes. And I thought, I want to stroke this dog. So I said, is it okay to stroke your dog? And he said, yeah, of course it is. And I bent down to stroke the dog, and he was so excited. He was wagging his tail, and he was so excited. And I said, oh, your dog's really excited. And he went, yeah, I know, because obviously he was wagging his tail. I went, no, he's really excited because you're planning something. And this come out before I realised what I was saying. And he looked at me and I went, he just wants you to know he can't wait. He's so excited he can't wait. And he looked at me, and I stroked the dog and went, bye. And he just looked at me. And I think that's probably the only time, no, actually a couple of times that I've gone up to strangers in that way as far as the communication. And then years ago, I used to have a ginger cat, and I called her Felix. I know, but usually Felix is like black and white cats for some reason, and I called her Felix. And she was beautiful, and I have no idea why, but I always had to stroke her. I always had to touch her. Whenever she greeted me, I always had to touch her. And even if it was just one stroke. And then one day I was in the garden, and I was hanging some washing out, and she was bathing in the sunshine, and she was just rolling on her back and showing her belly, and her legs were in the air. And I remember looking at her thinking, you are so beautiful. You're so beautiful, Felix. And then I carried on hanging my washing, and I was aware that I didn't go over and touch her. And I thought, and it was a fleeting thought, I always touch her, but it just disappeared. And then I carried on doing what I was doing. And then I think it was a couple of days later, I thought, I haven't seen Felix. I don't know where she is. And I looked all over for her. And I asked my neighbours, because it was in a village, there was hardly any traffic. Have you seen Felix? I can't find her. And it wasn't like her. And they was like, no. And then one day this lady came past on a push bike, and she said, have you lost a cat? And I went, yes. And she said, oh, I don't know if it's your cat, but there's a cat in the side of the road about half a mile down the lane. No. So I went down, and it was Felix. But I knew when I saw her in the garden, and I can't prove that I didn't see her physically. That was her saying goodbye to me, because that's the last time and so that's why I didn't stroke her, because there was nothing to stroke. I just saw Felix.
That's so amazing.
And I remember that, and I can't prove it, but the fact that it's so strong, I can feel that now. Yeah.
That's the point where you have to just accept it. That, there's not a manual to tell you, yes, that's exactly what happened. You can't look it up, but you're telling the story again. So the energy was strong enough to make it memorable.
Yeah.
We had lost our cat Toppy in the wintertime, and my dog's just coming. Hi, say hello. And we couldn't find him. We went everywhere around here looking for him. I knocked on all the neighbors' doors. No, nobody had seen him. So we went to bed, and I said to my husband, look, just lie quietly for a minute. I'm going to just try this, go into the space and see if I can see where he is. And it was very late. And sure enough, I went in and I saw him in the window of our neighbor's garage. I didn't even know they had a window. I hadn't looked at it sharply enough. And I said, I think he's in the window of this garage. And my husband said, no, we asked them. He wasn't in there. Oh, all right. So off I went to school to teach the next day, feeling very sad, because I'd rather know that they've left the earth bodies like your cat than not know where they are. That bothered me, that he might have been suffering. So I came home from school, and it was about 4 o'clock or something, and there'd been fresh snow. And I got out of the truck and I looked down. There were cat footprints. And we have a split level. And so in the top part of the split level, there's a sunroof. The cat can go up the trellis, across the top of the roof, down onto the sunroof, and in through the screen in our bedroom. So we've got a little cat door in the screen, and he can come in and out. And so I dropped my bags and I went running upstairs. And there he is, having a bath on the bed in our bedroom. Oh, of course, I was so happy to see him. The phone rang at 4:30. It was my neighbor saying, say, did your cat come back? And I said, yes. And he said, I went out and they had a vase or something that was in the window of this garage, and it had been knocked over. And so he opened the door again, and out came the cat, and he came home. So he showed me where he was. Isn't that cool?
Oh, that's amazing.
Yeah.
I love stories like that.
Yeah.
We've got a few people, so I'm just going to say hi. So I'll put the messages on so you can see. Do you know that lady?
Oh, I know Amber. Hi, Amber.
So Amber's saying hello. And Heather. Obviously, you know Heather.
Like Heather Drummond.
Yeah.
Hi, Heather. I'm going to do a podcast with Heather at the end of the month. I've seen the slides before. That's so real.
Oh, we've got quite a few. There might be a slight delay. Jill Thomas. So I'm just going to share that one. So Jill Thomas is saying, this is for the benefit of the audio later. I had a similar experience. A horse I had that passed away suddenly communicated that he was waiting to come back to me as a dog so he could come inside the house. How lovely is that?
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, thank you, Jill. If anybody would like to ask Gail or myself any questions, please feel free to do so. Okay, so just write a comment, and you can ask Gail any questions. If she can answer them, I'm sure she will. But in the meantime, so what sort of work are you doing now then, Gail? How's your work going now?
I don't have a huge presence online because I don't want to only do this. I want to ride my horses, play my fiddle, canoe, cross-country ski, hike, because I put it out there and it just started to go crazy. And so I think if you go on my site, it's on Facebook, Intuitive Energy Worker and Animal Communicator. I think the last thing on there is, okay, everybody, you can contact me through here, but I would rather talk to animals than keep this site up to date and everything. And it's just mostly by word of mouth. Mm-hmm. And so it just trickles in. And every penny that I make from that, although I do a lot of freebies for people too, just because it's good to be kind, it goes into my horse account. And the farrier was there this morning. So it pays for farrier and shots and all of that stuff, because as you know, horses are expensive. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm doing, is that. And I also do a whole lot of other things in life and keep a balanced life. But I just love to squirrel away down in my office or in front of the wood stove in the basement and talk to the animals. But
so tell the listeners what you was doing this weekend. You was doing something quite exciting.
Oh, with the maple syrup business. Oh, we have a forest behind us here, and we tap about 50 trees, and we collected all the buckets by hand, and we have an open fire. And if you go on my Facebook page, you can see a picture of the fire crackling yesterday. And so the dogs and I get all muddy and snowy, and we collect the sap, and then we boil it down and then pour it off and then bring it in and bottle it up and mostly give it away. We enjoy it all year. But it's the first thing you can really do outside in the spring here in this part of Canada that is comfortable, because the fire is the outdoor fire is going and everybody's warm. And as soon as the smoke is around, then the neighbors come, and then they'll bring tea, or I have tea and coffee, and I make what's called Johnny cake here, and it's slathered in butter and maple syrup, and also we sit around the fire and have a good time. But yeah, that's what we do. Do you want to hear a story about a lost cat?
Yes.
It's absolutely fascinating. So this cat it's another attitude story like Ruby. So her person was devastated that she had disappeared, and his intent was, why did you leave and where are you? And her name is Sydney, but she had attitude. When I first went in to chat with her, she said, okay, first off, dearie, my name is Heather, not Sydney. And I said, this isn't about your name, Sydney. No, it's Heather. Your person wants to know where you are and why you've run away. And I knew nothing about this family. Now I do, and I have pictures of their children on my walls and everything, because this communication session went from May until Christmas. She was something else, this cat. And so she said, I've run away because my person we'll call him Brian again. Brian takes away I'm a good hunter, and he takes away my mice and things, voles. She said she hunted voles, which was significant because I had to ask them that. Is she a vole hunter or is she a mouse hunter? Voles. And so I said, well, where are you? So up comes about 500 round bales. These are all horse people. They know. Great big round bales. 500. I thought, wow. And she showed me a couple of trucks in a yard with a house. She showed me details of a shop. You'd go in the shop door, and there was a wood stove in there, lots of equipment that I didn't understand. And curiously, there was a box nailed to the wall near the wood stove that was open, like old apple boxes, if anybody's old enough to know what they are. So if you imagine a box turned sideways and screwed into a wall, and there's no door, there's no front on it. So the cat could get up and curl up in there and be warm. And this fellow loved this cat more than anything. And so she showed me all of this. And I thought, okay, she's somewhere there. I send all of this back to Brian. And he says, oh, you weren't reading her. You were reading me. That's everywhere. I have looked for her. Yes, there were a couple of trucks in the yard the day she disappeared. Yes, we have 500 bales. I'm a bison farmer out on the prairies here in Canada. Cool. And yes, that's my shop. He's a welder. And yes, there's a box on the wall beside this is people, this is where you have to say, oh, okay, she's not crazy then. Because I just wouldn't even think of putting a box on a wall for a cat. What a great idea. So I said, okay, I'll go in and try again. So the next one, she says, I'm in the big field with these flowers, shows me a picture of flowers I've never seen before. And she said, the field's been mowed. Hey, probably, didn't know. And on the back of the field was a huge rock face, and it went over into a forest. And I'm there. What are you doing there? I'm hunting. I said, what for? Voles. Are you going to go home? Nope, not today. I'm not, but I'll go home when there's a big storm. Okay. I write back to Brian. I tell him, I went online and I found pictures of the flower. I found the flowers. Yellow, looks like a small dandelion, had this kind of shaped leaf. Found flowers that I saw in the communication. Sure enough, he says, yeah, those grow in a freshly mown field. I just took the hay off a couple of weeks ago. Is there a rock face in the back? Yes, that's where she is. Is she coming home? Nope, not coming home until it storms. So every time it stormed, he'd contact me and say, okay, I think she might come in tonight. And she didn't. A little tyke, she didn't. And so this went on and on and on. And so we're getting into December now, and she's telling me, she interrupted another communication. She said, I'll be home for Christmas. I said, no, you won't. And I'm not telling Brian because you're going to disappoint him again. no, I'm not. And she said, yeah, I'll be home when the baby's coming. The baby's coming. Okay. So I did not tell him that. Now that was on maybe a Saturday. Anyway, 2 days later, I hear my phone in the middle of the night, but I'm not about to answer it. It was a phone call. It was Jamie left a message, or Brian, he left a message saying that he was almost hysterical. He was so happy. She's home. She came home. It's so wonderful. And so I got up. I'm in my underwear downstairs making coffee in the morning. I have to phone his wife. And I say, are you all so happy? I'm so glad she's home. She said she was going to, but I didn't send the information in case she disappointed Brian again. And then there was a long pause. And you have to be very careful when you communicate with animals. They tell you things that are sensitive, and you need to respect the space of the human. And I didn't know if I should ask the question. And I said, I have to ask you, are you expecting? And there was a long pause. And I thought, oh no, I've overdone it here. And then she said, yeah, I just found out yesterday. I haven't told my family yet. Okay, so there we go. So Sydney Heather's still there. And yes, they had another baby. They got 3 beautiful girls. And yes, he's still welding. And yes, still a bison farmer. But isn't that a great story? Just
it's amazing.
Amazing. I don't do lost animals anymore though, because
it's a hard one to do.
If I find them on the side of the road, like your cat, my heart, I just cannot take that news. I did because I have to. I don't want to do that because I know it brings sorrow, and I'd rather bring happiness and solve problems for people and their animals than. So there are other communicators who are comfortable with that, and I can refer people to them if they would like to have a lost animal found. But it just breaks my heart when it happens.
Yeah. I've had a few people contact me or sort of third person to see if I can help. But as soon as I get that, I feel a wall going up, and then that is enough to stop anything coming.
Yeah.
Because if you desperately want to receive the information, sometimes it has the opposite effect. Well, it does for me. If you're trying to do that,
you're right.
You've just got to step aside from it. And if you get into the emotion of it as well, which is quite often the case when an animal goes missing. Yeah. They can be the harder ones. So we've got some. Okay, so Alice, and again, this is for the benefit of the listeners, mentions that her barn cat turned amazing house cat too, disappeared a few days ago. We are devastated. He's fixed. Worried he was picked by an eagle, coyote. He was so lovable. His name is Smokey. Okay, so there's a few people that are asking for you to connect.
With me, I can give you my email address.
Yeah, because
I'll put it in the chat, shall I?
Yeah. So if anybody wants to contact Gail for personal reasons, so any questions are more general rather than this, because it's just a bit more work involved. And there's another lady as well. So by all means, please contact Gail.
There you go.
If you contact Gail through her email.
And tell me that you were on the Ronnie broadcast, so I know. I'll probably keep a file for the Ronnie people.
But all the details of Gail's Facebook page, and I can put your email page on there as well if you want me to.
Yeah, my Facebook page email is a Gmail account. Don't send it there. I'll find it, but it's just do this address and it'll come right to me.
Okay, no worries.
Yeah.
Okay, Susan. Yeah, so Suzanne will send you an email as well, and you'll be able to view that. Okay, any more comments? So keep your comments coming in. If it's a general question, so if somebody's out there thinking, I think I might have communicated, so animal communication isn't just based at animals. Okay, if you're intuitive, which we all are, trust me, we're all intuitive. You're intuitive, okay, but everybody will go to what area they are drawn to. So if we all did every single thing, then there would be no time for anything else in life. So everybody has a draw to whatever area. But if you're intuitive, you're intuitive. And
can I say something to that, Ronnie?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. The whole thing with me started when I was 17, and I had dreams that came true, like carbon copy dreams, like my grandmother's death, an airplane crash where I went and talked to the pilot and told him it was going to happen. And he said, there, little girl. And I watched it happen, actually. And if the person believes me, or believes that it's not me, believes the information, they can stop these things from happening. So there's that sort of intuitive reception that I wasn't looking for that. It just happened. And so I still have dreams that come true, and I'll tell people, and then I'm absolved. I can just deliver the information. The other thing I've done is I have left my body and traveled. And that can happen to you too. And if it does, go with it. I traveled across, I was at home, a teenager still, and my mother was very sick. And I was sleeping in my sister's room, and I traveled across, was at a farmhouse with an upstairs, the front stairs and the stairs to the kitchen. And I went over to my parents' side of the house, and I looked down at my mom, and I thought, oh, the ambulance will come. The ambulance came. And I thought, boy, I better get back into my body, because if anybody looks at me, they're going to think I'm gone, because the heart rate would have gone right down. The essence of me was not in there anymore. And I remember thinking, oh, that's really cool. So you can experience it that way. I also can contact people's spirit animals. This is absolutely fascinating. And I just go into my space. I have a picture of the person, and the same thing I told you about in the beginning. And then I can go in and I invite the animals. And what happens is a lot of animals who aren't their spirit animals come trotting along saying, it's me, I'm a giraffe. And I think, no, I don't think so. And then along will come the beaver, saying, no, it's me. And I think, okay, yeah, I guess you are. And they tell the person amazing things about themselves. And I didn't know that wolf was my spirit animal for many years, but my husband and I have done a lot of Arctic traveling, 7-week canoe trips and things. And one time I had a dream up there. I knew by this time, I was in my late 20s, that these are real dreams, as opposed to the ones where you're running and something's chasing you. And so I said, well, Raph, we're going to be visited by a white wolf today, sometime when we pulled up for a snack. We were with 2 other canoes and 4 other people. And he's going to come from our right side and going to come in front of the canoe. He's going to sit and have a little scratch, yawn, and turn and walk away. And so I forgot about it. It just, away it went. We're paddling along. Later that afternoon, we stopped for a snack, and I could feel him. And there's the energy, right? I thought, whoa. And I looked to my right. There he is. Beautiful Arctic wolf walking along the shoreline. Everybody else is going, because I hadn't told them. I said, it's okay. It's okay. My husband's getting his camera out, of course. And he walks along. He goes right in front of the canoes, sits down, yawns, has a big old scratch, looks at us. And for one split second, I thought, is there a mining place around here? And is this somebody's dog? Because when it's real like that, it's not your dream. You go, yeah, right. He was an Arctic wolf, and he turned and went up and over the hill. So there's another way that energy can come through. And each one of you, if you are, just lie there, find a quiet space in your mind, close your eyes, and every time you feel, oh, shoot, I forgot to take the chicken out. Oh, no, just, I see you, let it go. Go back into that quiet space again and just receive, see what comes. It's amazing.
That was such a lovely story to share, an amazing story to share. It's I'm sat here listening to you, Gail, and it's fascinating because we both work with energy, we both do communication, but your depth and the information that comes forward to you is, I'm like, oh my goodness. And I know years ago, I used to have a bit of imposter syndrome, which we all do. I'm sure
We
we
all
do
do.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And I was very much, what right have I got to say that I do this? And there was other people, and if somebody if my name was mentioned, I would sort of make an excuse and say, yeah, but so and so does that as well. And I don't do that anymore. And I don't. If I'm very, very grateful for anybody that recommends me. I am so humbled by that. I always am, and I always will be, but I never comment, especially if somebody recommends me on Facebook, because the person will go to whoever their energy is resonating with. We all have a vibration, and we all have a different way of working, and we all have a link, and you will be drawn to whoever is right for you. And that's my belief. And you will hear what you need to hear.
Yes.
Because sometimes I'm passing on information and my head has an interpretation, and I never fill in, I never give more, I never change it. I give it as it comes, and if it's not taken, I go back. And if it's persistent, I know that it is correct, but the person can't see it, so I try and give it a slightly different way. But we hear and we see and we feel what we need. And sometimes it might be a few words, and it's like, boom, there's tears, there's emotion, and it's landed. And it doesn't matter the hows, the whys, it's just done what it needs to do. That energy's made that connection for whatever reason. So everybody is capable of it. Sometimes I think I used to say to people, if I was doing teaching, I would say to people, it doesn't matter if you think it's your imagination. If you're not hurting anybody and you're not trying to be something you're not, and you're being honest and working from the heart, it doesn't matter. And especially if you're practicing, because until you've passed on that information, that vibration, that energy, you don't know if it's your imagination or not. And as you said, it comes in our head. It can sound like us, but you get to know the difference, what's you and what's not you. And the more you work with it, the more you understand that, the more you feel that.
It's hard to describe, isn't it?
It is hard to describe.
There's
because
sort of a thunk that happens.
Yes.
Oh yeah, happens. And it's not always it's logical from the animal's point of view. It has logic, but it's not mine. It's not my logic. I guess it's when it's not my information. The horse with the growth in the bottom of his swallow. Oh yes, thunk. That's not mine. I don't know what that is. But it's also that feeling that is an energy space in us all that hasn't been defined. And I want to put a plug in for something that's happening at the University of Saskatchewan in Canada here. There was a symposium. I think I mentioned this to you, Ronnie, too. You'd be interested in this, anybody who's interested in energy. A symposium at the university last May, and they're having the second one this May. And what it is, it's about measuring, they call them IICs, intuitive interspecies communicators, animal communicators, same thing. But they're also including people who can talk to trees, which I can, and rocks and that sort of thing. And what they're doing is they're using scientific measurements to measure the waves of the energy that are going through with people like you and me, Ronnie, and anybody else out there who's tuned into this, so that it's becoming more understandable to the layman. And so what they're doing is they're marrying animal communicators with veterinarians, scientists, people who do animal rescue, people who do therapeutic things. They talk about heart math. There's about the heart, the energy that comes off of our hearts and goes around us. And a horse's energy is 10 times what we give off. And that's why they're good for therapeutic purposes, for riding, for people with PTSD. And that's what they're doing. And it's all marrying this. This is a huge movement that's happening. And if anybody is interested in learning and being part of this symposium, it's the University of Saskatchewan in Canada. If you just Google that and IIC, and you can at least have a look at what they're doing. And it's not a for-profit anything. This isn't a plug for some. I wouldn't do that here, but I think it's very, very interesting, this movement that's coming that can measure what people like you and I feel, Ronnie. And I think maybe that's what this buzzy thing on my nose is, the energy's buzzing away. But it's really interesting, that sense of knowing this is not my logical earth information. This is coming from somewhere else. People call it intuition, but that's so broad, isn't it? But it's the start,
Yeah. But well, we communicate in words because that's all we have. But it's not always translated into words what you receive, but you have to translate it. And I quite often say it's like translating a language. I have to listen to the language. I have to translate it in my mind and then pass it on to you.
One way people can feel this, I hope everybody's felt this. When you look at somebody and they tell you, I love you, and they look in your eyes, it's not I love you, it's I love you. And they take your hands in their face in their hands, and they look at you, and that part down here that I was talking about before, this part, it sort of goes all, and poets since the beginning of time have been trying to explain what love is. You can't. Why? It's an energy. And if you give off love to other people, if you go into a room and you just, I know it sounds so funny, feel love, you exude that feeling of love instead of defensiveness or insecurity or whatever, and you concentrate on kindness and love and giving that out, guess what happens? It all comes back to you. But those of you who are listening, just imagine when someone has looked at you, or you've looked at a horse or your dog or your cat, and you get that feeling in there. That's what we're talking about. You cannot write that out. Nobody's done it yet, but you sure as heck can feel it, right? Just because you can't see it doesn't mean it's not there. But so it's there in all of you.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, we breathe oxygen. We breathe air every day. We don't see it. When we turn a light switch on, we know, if you wanted to think about it, I'm turning the light switch on, the power's coming from there, it's going down the wires, it's coming into there, it's lighting up the light. You don't think, you just trust it's there. The same as you breathe, you trust it's there.
Because it's a known, isn't it? But, I was speaking to a women's business group a few years ago, and I was talking about what we're talking about today. And I said, okay, everybody hold up your cell phones. So they all held up their cell phones. And I said, okay, pretend that your great-great-grandmother, great-great, has just plunked down in front of you now. And you say, Grandma, do you want to see what my friends in Australia, or do you want to see what Ronnie's doing in London, in England? Oh, look, hi, Ronnie. And she says, hi back. And your grandmother says, you need to go to church on Sunday. The devil has your soul, right? She's never seen this. This is impossible. She said, she would say, you cannot talk to that woman in England, because it takes 4 months for a letter to get there. You can't do that. And by the way, what is that in your hand? Oh, it's a telephone, Grandma. Great-great-great-grandma. What is that? Oh, it's something you can talk to somebody far away on. No, honey, no. You are possessed by the devil. And what's that made out of? Well, plastic. What? Doesn't even know what plastic is. So we talk on these things. You and I are talking right now. Can anyone explain really and truly how this energy is going through in real, what we call time, in real time? We can't, but we know it's real because we see and we hear, therefore it's real. But I bet no one listening can explain how this is even possible. It's amazing. So when we have a communication or a dream or something, and we see or feel, like you were saying, Ron, you feel love, you know it's there, then that is the energy world, and it is all around us right now. All around us. And they say that your ancestors, if you hold your hands out, everybody, there we are, your ancestors are that far away from you, right in the room with you right now. We just don't know how to access them yet, but we will. The energies are there. So hold on to the love feeling, spread it out. It's good.
Yeah. And I suppose so thank you for sharing that, and thank you for that explanation, Gail. It's like if you tell a child how a child is born, you would start off by doing the very basics, nothing to scare them, but the very basics of how a child is born or created. And then as they get a bit older, a teenager, you'd go into a bit more details for obvious reasons. And you'd elaborate a little bit more, and you'd put more colour in it, and you'd more explanations. When they're an adult or they're about to have a baby, they know a lot more information, but the story is the same, the essence is the same. And that's the same with anything that we learn in life. Now, learning about ourselves and understanding ourselves is an amazing thing to do. And like you said earlier, sometimes it's because something's happened and you feel different and you think there must be more to this world than what I'm being given or what I'm being seen or being shown. And when you start to ask questions and start to explore your own understanding and your own awareness, I think that's when a lot of magic can happen too. And you get to know what's right for you, you get to know your own energy. So that's how you can tell the difference between when something new comes in. It's ongoing and it's fascinating. It's a school that's never closed. You just learn so much, even when things don't necessarily go the way you expect or you'd like. You learn so much from that. My belief is you don't have to go to the depths of the darkest places to come out and be enlightened. I don't believe that's how we need to experience and need to understand. I think we put ourselves in those places because we've shut down or we're not listening, that our own being takes us there. I don't think it's necessary that we have to go there to experience that, but you do learn through things that come along in your life, through your own experiences, through your own understanding, and it changes too. It can change from one year to the next, 1 month to the next, one day to the next. I think it was on Warwick Schiller's podcast that he was talking about. He'd done an interview with somebody that was a black belt expert. I think he was an English guy. I can't remember his name, but he was an English guy who lives in the States, works with horses, and he was interviewing him. And he was talking about the black belt. You know, he thought that once he got to black belt, he'd learn new things. You know, he'd learned everything, he'd be more things to learn. And he was told, no, you basically go back to the beginning, but see things with different eyes. You'll see it differently. So it's things you already know, but you'll see it differently, but you'll feel it differently. For me, it's very much about the feel. You have to have a feel that goes with what you see, because it's the feel that is the stronger connection. But that's my view. That's my interpretation.
No, absolutely. It's all feel.
Yeah. So we've got a few more people. So Nancy, do you know Nancy?
Oh, hi, Nancy. She's got a couple of really, really lovely horses. I've done some communications with Nancy. She's in the energy field as well.
Oh, wow. Welcome, Nancy. Thank you for your comment. And so I'm not going to put every comment on, because otherwise, but I'm just going to put a few on for Gail. You're amazing. Thank you for all you've done for me. So that's from Sharon Jones.
Thanks, Sharon.
And this is a friend of mine. We used to fly together. And so Mel says, love, love, love. Yes. There you go, Mel. Mel's recently lost one of her dogs has passed away, but she was away at the time. So I know that hit her quite bad. But she's a lovely lady,
Her dog's still with you.
Sorry?
Her dog is still with her.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go, Mel. Okay. Is there anything else you'd like to chat about? We've been on for an hour, but I'm quite happy to chat.
Oh my goodness. I don't know. Well, I could go on about journeying and spirit animals and
I tell you what, tell me how this impacts on your life. So I explain to people that it's not a 9 to 5. It's not a you do this and then you go back to your day job. For me, the communication is part of my evolving as a human, as a soul. I'm developing myself, and with that comes the communication and vice versa. And the communication has helped me see things within myself. So it's been a mutual exchange and learning from both sides of the coin, but it's there all the time. For me, it's when I go to bed, from when I wake up, I'm conscious of my thoughts, I'm conscious of where I am in my energy. It's not about being paranoia, but I'm aware of it. Doesn't mean to say I get it right all the time, but I do know when I'm out of it or when I'm away from it, and then I need to go back in the direction of where I should be, in alignment or whatever you want to call it. So tell me about your day. Tell me how it helps you in your life, your intuition, your guidance, your energy.
it's almost like lifeblood. It's just who I am, you know. So I'm sitting here. There's a maple tree right out the window, and while we've been chatting, I thank sounds weird, but I thank the tree for the sap that's going into the buckets right now. It's just always there. I see the wind in the trees, and I fill myself with that wind from the trees. It's even though I can chit chat away with anybody. If I'm in a crowd of people, oh my goodness, I can feel them. Oh wow, and I'll know when there's something wrong with someone. And oh, sometimes it's difficult, and I'll just say, how are you? And I can see in their eyes, so I know there's something. And if I sense they might like to chat, then that's okay. But I would never push myself on them. Um, it's all like you say, it's always there. So if I can't sleep at night, I go in, have a chat with Wolf and Bear and see what they're up to and what's on the path. And if we're going to go, they took me, well, that's another side, but took me on a path to a very strange place. And I didn't know it until we had COVID that that's what they were showing me. It was unbelievable. They take me on this same path and it gets longer and longer. And there's always something more for me to learn. And it was COVID. It was, I have to tell you, and it was a space on a shoreline, and it was dark, but there were things moving near the shore, and I had a really awful feeling. And I looked up, and there was a whole skyline of a dead city. There was just enough light I could see the high rises. There were no lights on in these buildings, and I thought, oh, I said to Wolf, I said, oh, it burned. Obviously it burned. It's all sort of black and everything. And he said, no, it didn't burn. Oh, and then I looked at the shoreline and I started seeing it, the Hudson River in the States goes from New York down, I think. Anyway, it's a big, wide, for those who don't know, big, huge, wide river, not as wide as the St. Lawrence, for those of you who are in Canada and know that, but it's a wide, sort of sluggish moving river. And I would see baskets from a grocery store, and then I would see a baby roll over, and it was horrible. And the baby was out of it was dead, what we would call dead. And then there were all of these, and fridges and stoves and cars, all of our trappings were floating down this river. And on the shore were all these people, like a Dickensian novel, skittering along, looking for things, and they're picking jewelry off dead people, and they're taking their wallets and their money. And I'm screaming at them, you can't eat money. You can't eat jewelry. There's nobody to buy it. There is no food. It's done. And the message was, go upriver, go upriver. And I thought, that is the damnedest thing. What on earth does that? This was probably 2019. What on earth is that? And then a couple of years later, I saw a picture of New York City that somebody posted somewhere in darkness. And I went, there's the feeling. Oh my God, that's it. And it wasn't fire. It was disease. It was us. And money, you couldn't go out and buy anything. I mean, the funniest thing is the thing people did want to get was toilet paper for some reason. I'm screaming, go for the canned beans, folks. It's going to feed you. The toilet paper, not so much. But yeah, the shelves were empty, and we are still not able to get things like children's Tylenol. No, there aren't enough tires. No, we haven't got the supplies. Now the Russian war in Ukraine is having something to do with that too. However, we still have a supply problem, but that dream was exactly what happened in this world. Nobody going, empty streets in New York City, Montreal, Toronto, highways clear, nobody on them. Everything looked dead. And we're now coming back. So I don't know how I got on that one, Ronnie. I'm sorry.
No, what I was going to say, so please forgive me if this is not how you feel this. Sometimes when we get things, we get them so dramatic, and we see things, so we don't mistake what we see. And then for you, you saw proof of it later. You saw a photograph, so you saw a snapshot. And actually, as I'm saying that, the saying reminded it a snapshot of what life can be or what life can present. And I think the understanding is you have to interpret that, don't you? Or you have to, as you were saying earlier, you have to, if you were to say that at the time, it would be very scary and it would be, oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm.
But the importance behind that message, that what you saw, is just as important, because it's showing you a caption of what happened. Mm-hmm. And people were going out and buying toilet paper. They were panicking. And this is what fear can do. It can make you do things that you stop listening to certain things, and you stop following your guidance, and you listen to the external big time. And you basically run around with like headless chickens at times. The interpretation or how you relay that has a lot to do of the timing as well. I'm not sure I'm making myself clear here. So do you understand what I'm saying, what I'm trying to relay? Please say no if you don't, Gail.
No, not entirely. Although the time it came after, often the dreams come sometime later. Yeah. And I know, now this was a journey, but it's very close to the dream. I know when it goes thunk, like it just, that's that feeling we were talking about.
Yeah.
But oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought about that journey for so long. Mm-hmm. So it was that feeling. And yes, there's a bigger message in there, if that's what you're getting at, about humanity, about how kindness, respect, calming down, working together as a community, global community now for survival is what we need. And that was the larger message, if that's what you're getting at.
Yes. Yeah.
That thing. There's always a lesson to learn, even when the animals are talking to their people. It's a melding of two energy bodies, and increasing understanding and awareness, and moving towards a better tomorrow rather than a worse tomorrow. It's a clarity. And so with that particular journey or dream, yeah, the message for humanity is you can't eat toilet paper either. You know, you need to not take it all off the shelf. We need to work together. And we do, if we're going to save the planet. I hate to sound like an alarmist, but it's true. We need to take a breath, step out into the forest, into the land, and realize that the chicken that you have on that styrofoam thingy wrapped in plastic was a being at one point, and that we need to eat. Not everybody eats animals, but a hunter and indigenous people have a very interesting view of respecting animals to feed their own bodies. But people are so far away from understanding that we're not at the top of the hierarchical totem pole here. We are just animals, and we know less than the animals know. they know more than we do, and we need to listen to them to survive, because they already have the answers.
Yeah.
So, the piece of chicken on a piece of styrofoam wrapped in plastic, the chicken feeds our bodies. We say thank you to the animal for providing that energy, and we throw everything in the garbage, and most of us think that just disappears. No, it doesn't. It's in the earth, in Mother Earth, in her flesh, in her bones. It's not going to disappear. We need to change. I don't get on that rant, but anyway, that's the feeling from that dream,
yeah.
or that message of something bigger.
Yes, that's what I was trying to say. You said it a lot easier. But yeah, we could do a whole little podcast on that. But it is about, so if you don't respect and love yourself, and that sounds very cliche, and even start to understand and like yourself, then you can't do that for others. There are lots of people that say, but I do this for them, I do lots for them, and I want to protect them, I want to love them, I want to make sure they're safe. But you have to have that same honor for yourself, because you are part of them and they are part of you. Everything is connected, and that, again, that can sound very cliche, but there is no such thing as separation.
No.
Even across the planets, the universe, wherever you want to go, there is no such thing as separation. Hence, we can communicate and talk to people past, present, future.
Yeah.
Animals, trees, everything is living, and it's not sci-fi. It's not,
No.
in a movie somewhere. But actually, if you look at movies, quite often you think, oh my God, they got it right then, and that was 10 years ago.
Well, look at George Orwell writing the novel 1984. Big
Yes.
Brother is watching you. Oh, we call her Siri, or what's the one in the house? Alexa, turn on the stove. Alexa, are you not feeling well today? Okay. I mean, he was so bang on. And look at Margaret Atwood. Oh, you probably don't know her. Very, very famous, worldwide, actually, Canadian author. And she writes science fiction. Well, except for the science fiction is coming true about the world just not functioning very well because of what humans have done to it. You really should read her, Ronnie. She's so good. Read The Handmaid's Tale. That's a good one.
Oh, but yeah, we had that on the TV. I watched bits of it, but not all of it. But
the book is good. The book is good. Yeah, but anyway, yes, we are all connected, and part of this whole thing with the upsurgence of and recognition of animal communicators, who, by the way, we would all have been burned at the stake not too long ago, and they would have called us witches not too long ago, which is partly why I never said anything till I retired, because I didn't want parents pulling their students out of my class because I was a witch. That's what would have happened. But yeah, it wasn't long ago. But now this movement, going back to what you're saying about lessons to be learned and the bigger picture with humanity being part of the whole energy existence to the universe, even to the places where we're putting garbage in outer space already, we have to try to pull together. And I think animal communication in its smallness, in its little small way, is an integral part of that movement that goes beyond you and me.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, Gail. Okay, right. So we've been going for about an hour and 20. I could talk all night, actually, but I think the subjects are going.
Ronnie, I've got to feed my horses.
Yeah. So Nancy, I'll just put this one on as a last. So Nancy, can you speak to how you handle when animals who need your help are not your clients? Like if you go into a stable with one horse, but other horses are trying to get your attention. So do you want to answer that one? And then I'll give my version.
They're not my clients. The people are my clients. The animals are special. I don't know what to call them because we don't have English words for it. They are the energy entity, the energy being that I'm communicating with. If it's like the seals came to me. I didn't ask to talk to them. I will listen. Like the mayor who said, please, could I have some water? I will listen to them. I'm not really sure, Nancy, what the connection is. Would I talk to the If I were told by an animal that their person is unkind to them, would I go to the person? I can't. I can't take that. I would do what I could do on my own to help to steer that person, but I don't have the right to do that. We must have humility. We must be humble. We must be respectful of all ways of knowing and all ways of being. And my way, and I know, Nancy, your way is a heart way, and so is mine. I would try to do everything I could for that animal within reason. But if you overstep, I don't know what would happen, because I won't do that. If it's out blatant animal cruelty, I'd call somebody up on it, just like if they were abusing a child. I don't care. That's my earth self. But if it was an energy thing, it would depend totally on what it was. And if my telling the human would make things better for both human and animal, and the human I thought might be receptive and value the information, I would do it. But if I thought there was going to be a conflict, like somebody who's using a severe bit with wires and stuff on it, and I just want to throw up, that's not my place. I can't. If the animal says my mouth hurts, I might say to the person, have you checked your horse's teeth lately with the vet? Maybe there's a problem there, and hopefully they would find the laceration or whatever. I don't know an answer. I hope that's answering your question.
Yeah, I would, it'd be this similar thing to me too. I mean, I have been to a group of horses, and this was slightly different. And one of the clients was going to see their horse, and actually the other one wanted to talk to me, but they were there for the same reason. So I said, "Oh, can I go to this horse first? Because actually they want to speak to me first." And I've been somewhere where I've seen somebody not treat a horse very nicely, and it was, when I say not nicely, it was deemed that it was okay, but I knew it wasn't. And I was trying to communicate, and it was right opposite me, and I just had to go across and said, I can't remember what I said, but that was my emotions taking over then, and said, I said what I needed to say, and then I walked away. But if the person was receptive and open, and you would have a feel for that, because
I would, yeah.
I believe communication comes to you so because it knows it can maybe get somewhere. Not always, but majority of the time it knows that it can land where it needs to land. Then I trust that feel, and I would ask for an opportunity which would be presented that I could maybe pass on something, and I would pass it on hopefully in a way that would be accepted. And the greatest thing and the kindest thing to do is to maybe have a conversation and let the person almost come to you and say, "Do you think it might be this?" And you go, "Yeah, maybe so.
What a great idea.
You almost give the power back to the person, and I don't mean that in a power way, but you don't make them feel small. Because if somebody came to me and I wasn't being very receptive, I would shut off, and I wouldn't listen. So you don't want that, and you would hope to be spoken to in the way that you would like to be spoken to. So it's always with compassion and understanding, and never judgmental, even though the person may not be somebody that you would naturally interact with. There's something in that being that you connect to on a heart level that you can converse with, and I believe that it comes along for that way, unless it's an emergency, unless something really needs to be said. I mean, I'll just say this quickly, and then we'll wrap this up. But I have had communications from horses I've never met from the other side of the world, and literally driving, and I get a feeling, I know who I'm to pass this on to. And I won't say who it was because they're quite well known, but I've passed the message on. And I've said, "Does this make sense? It might seem bizarre." And I've left a voice message, and then I've literally got a message back saying, "I just opened an email, and the horse that you're describing is in front of me." And I go, "Okay," but it was in need. It was a cry for help, and And I said, can you help? And he said, I think so. And that was that. That's all I needed to say. But it was, I trust my own voice now to know that I need to do something. I don't question it, because if it's there, I don't question it. Afterwards sometimes, and I, like anybody, it's nice to get confirmation back, because not so you go, oh yeah, I was right. It's because you understand that you was picking up correctly. But you have to let go of that. The outcome is not our responsibility as far as that. Once we've passed it on, that's it. That's our role.
It's not our information to hold. It's our information to give. So I may have someone come back to me from 5 years ago and say, oh, Muffy's doing really well. And I'm going, When Muffy was not, it was this person's information, not mine. I just was the conduit to give it to that person. And once I've given it, for the most part, it's over. And then I have to go back, and I keep copies of everything. So I have to go back and reread. So if I get a repeat person, I will go back into a previous communication and review the names of the animals, because our animals are important to us, like they are our family members. But yeah, if somebody comes in, that energy has been given, the information, as you were saying, has been given, and it's over, so, yeah. That was an interesting question, Nancy.
It was. Thank you, Nancy. Thank you, everybody, for stopping by and just for commenting and just sharing your experiences. And once again, I am sorry I can't put every message on, because it just doesn't flow. But the messages are there for everybody to see on Facebook. If you can, we can reply afterwards anyway. So would you like to say a parting farewell, Gail? And if you don't mind hanging on for a few minutes, just so I can chat to you afterwards. So would you like to say any parting words and bye to the listeners?
Just trust yourself, be kind in this world, and kindness will come back to you. And thank you for listening and watching. And it's been a delight to be part of this, Ronnie. Thank you so much for having me. I keep my eyes on you, see who you're interviewing, and I think it's a privilege to be one of your guests. Thank you so much.
Oh, bless you. Privilege is all mine, trust me. Okay, I'll just pop you out, Gail. Wow, what an amazing lady. My cheeks are hurting from smiling, and I had to laugh when somebody says they love you and they grab your cheeks. I thought, well, it's been a long time since somebody's done that to me. So I was smiling away when she said that. But it's fascinating, because we do a similar work, but she receives and she works slightly differently. So we have similar experiences, but she works differently, as so does Ginny, another lady communicator that I spoke to. Don't be afraid. That's what I wanted to say, actually, is sometimes people think that we are mind readers and we can delve into the deepest of your souls. There is nothing to be afraid of. There is nothing to hide. If you want to connect with a communicator or an energy worker, there is nothing to be afraid of. Trust your intuition, trust your gut. If that person is authentic and working in the way they should be working, they will honor you. So don't be afraid to connect to somebody. And you can ask questions that you might be afraid to ask a close friend or a partner. So everything is confidential. Nothing is repeated. I mean, some of the stories were shared, but that was, it wasn't personal information as such. But everything is confidential, because that's the way it is. There's an ethics to this work, and it's our own ethics. So please be assured of that. On another note, make it a bit lighter, okay? Everybody can do this. And the only way you are going to learn what is right for you is by trying it for yourself. Practice on friends' animals, practice on animals you don't know anything about, or people you don't know anything about, and see what comes through. Be in the right frame, the right energy, be in that calm state, and keep a journal. Remember, sometimes you may get emotions or feelings very, very strongly. Doesn't mean to say that's exactly how they're feeling. They might give you that way so you don't miss it. As you develop, that can pull back a little bit and be a lot more subtle. Okay. So on that note, have an amazing week. Thank you for stopping on by. I really, really appreciate my listeners and my guests, and I love doing this. And I get a bit tongue-tied. I'm sure you noticed tonight. I'm only human. Have a lovely evening. Thank you so much, and I shall speak to you soon. Bye for now.